Welcome to the Beyond 6 Seconds podcast. I'm your host, Carolyn Keel, and on today's episode, I'm speaking with Ross K. Foad, a professional actor and voice artist in the United Kingdom. A second-generation actor, he was just 18 months old when he made his acting debut, but would get his proper start in acting on the London comedy circuit as a stand-up comic and sketch comic actor. He's autistic and dyspraxic, and in 2017 was one of only 30 disabled actors chosen by the BBC for their Class Act training scheme, an initiative designed to help increase disabled representation on screen. Ross, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute honor to go from being a fan of the show to being a guest on the show.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, just to start off, when did you realize that you were autistic and dyspraxic?
This goes in kind of two parts because originally the dyspraxia diagnosis came first, and rather it was my mum who kind of noticed that something was a little different about me to other children. She said she started noticing quite early on, sort of, I think of sort of maybe around 8 or so. And she was actually trying to push for some sort of diagnosis of something. She obviously knew something was up, even though people were insisting that there was nothing wrong, because I was generally, averagely intelligent, so they didn't really see a problem. But mums know best, I think. And so she pushed and pushed, and eventually she managed to get me seen by certain people who managed to diagnose me with dyspraxia at about 11. It didn't mean a huge amount to me, but it explained a lot. Eventually, it would come to mean a lot more once I sort of grew up and understood it a lot more. But crucially, though they caught the dyspraxia, they did not actually catch the kind of like wider, actually full kind of autism, which was always something that I wish I had. The awareness was not great back then, and that was not realized till much later on by kind of my mid-20s, even though I kind of, in my heart, I already knew, because dyspraxia didn't explain enough for certain symptoms for me. So I went and got a diagnosis myself, which is quite hard to do as an adult. Sometimes it can be quite a long wait, but eventually I managed to get seen, and just to kind of confirm what I already knew, that they had indeed missed the autism earlier on, the full thing really.
How did being autistic and dyspraxic impact you when you were growing up? Like, you mentioned that your mom noticed early on around dyspraxia. So like, what did that look like, and how did that feel like for you kind of growing up?
Growing up, well, a lot of it was due to, obviously, dyspraxia is a little more gross motor skills and coordination based. And so she began to notice a lot of kind of issues there, such as I was incredibly clumsy. I would fall over a lot. I was very resistant to I hated wearing shorts, which was mandatory to do in primary school for some reason. I hated it because I would always fall over, which meant I would always get hurt. And so that's something I particularly remember. The first thing I sort of remember how it affected me. That part I particularly remembered. And also just other things such as inability to be able to differentiate between left and right, struggling to walk in a straight line, not being able to catch things. So she noticed things, even if I don't think she herself knew what was quite going on there. It didn't really quite hit me what it meant, I think, fully until I'd say secondary school, when I began to realize just how quite sort of different I was to other children, and I just found it harder and harder to relate to other children. And I think some of that will be more the autism than the dyspraxia. And I think it just grew from there, really, and a growing awareness of something not feeling quite right, feeling very out of place, and just kind of being in my own little world and
Yeah.
never really quite fitting in.
Yeah, like the social aspect. Yeah,
Mm,
sometimes that comes out more the older you get or when you enter like the
definitely.
teenage years, things change.
Yes, yes. People were starting to get into parties and dating and things like that, and none of that meant anything to me. And so I just, as you begin to grow up, it's kind of this, the gulf grows. Whereas it wasn't so obvious to me in primary school. I just knew I had some coordination issues and I wasn't good at catching and stuff. And but yeah, all these things start to happen definitely more once you start hitting the teenage years. You start to realize a lot more about how you're not quite the same.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And at the same time, throughout your entire life, you've been involved in acting. I guess because your family was involved as well. So they got you in pretty early.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm curious because I'm late diagnosed autistic myself.
Mm,
I'm not dyspraxic as far as I know, but I have always had a lot of those challenges with like coordination and not being able to catch things and just positioning. So I'm curious as an actor, like I'm just thinking
mm.
about like the concept of blocking, like knowing where to stand on a stage in a position was always difficult for me when I tried it because I never knew like where I was supposed to go and coordinate space. So I'm curious about your experience as an autistic and dyspraxic actor. Like, are there particular challenges that you have, or do you find that it really unlocks a lot of your strengths and talents, or both?
I always liken autism and dyspraxia to a double-edged sword. There are a lot of challenges, but once you know how to manage them, overcome them, then there's a lot of benefits that can be used. I definitely agree with you about things like, I think it's because I'm so hyper aware about things like with the blocking and getting and making sure I'm in the right position. I kind of focus to like the point of some intent. Like I can do hyper focus anyway, generally when I'm working on things, but I kind of like really, really work really hard to, when I'm being told to try and figure out the sequencing.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's an overcompensation. I focus so much on it because I really don't want to mess it up. And I think that just that intense focus allows me to sort of manage it with regards to kind of instructions like left and right and things like that. So yeah, I'd say it's just a combination of awareness of that I have an issue there and trying so hard to make sure that I don't.
Mm-hmm.
With regards to other aspects, so obviously certain things will definitely be out, like dancing or anything too complex with too many movements that I could, I know my limits. I'm not going to be able to do certain roles like that or like complex fight scenes.
Yeah.
So I know my sort of limits like that, and that's okay. Also, I think one of the hardest things for me for being an autistic actor is a lot of it is I'm not good at traveling really. I find it difficult to find places particularly because I have a lack of spatial awareness. So I don't think there's a technical term for it, but I cannot read maps to the point where I'm almost guaranteed to, when I'm trying to find a location, I'll come out of the train station and it's almost a guarantee that I'll walk in the complete opposite direction just because
Same.
it doesn't mean anything. And people are like, oh, just use Google Maps. It doesn't mean anything to me. I can't conceptualize that is me and this is here. Somehow it doesn't work. I can't. I'll go that way. I'm meant to go that way. Don't know why. And so I have to ensure to sort of compensate for that again. I have to make sure that I arrive with at least an hour to spare just to find a place because I just don't trust myself to be able to do it. And so that's a kind of a big panic. Sometimes you don't get the location till quite late to where you have to go. You can get the job, but it's always, oh, we don't know where we're filming yet. Kind of,
Yeah.
we'll confirm the day before, and so then I'm frantically trying to focus on this map, which I don't understand,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and kind of figure out what train to get. That honestly, it's like got almost nothing to do with acting, but it's because acting involves a lot of travel like that for live jobs that the autism kind of comes into play there, and that can be so off-putting to me sometimes. It's something I shouldn't have to focus so much on that, but I do, because that's kind of the difficulty. Once I get there, once I'm doing it, then then I'm in my element and there's not as many problems. It's honestly, that is kind of one of the biggest barriers for me, which is almost incidental to the actual process.
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate to the whole not being able to read maps and always getting lost. Like, things are better for me now that things like Google Maps and
Oh, good.
things like exist now. But even then, like, it's helpful to a point, but it's almost like the closer I get to the destination, it's less and less meaningful to me. It's like, okay, I know I'm like a block away, but I have no idea how to get like the final distance to where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, should be simple, but sometimes it just isn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of like how you were saying, you really have to hyper focus on like your blocking and sort of movements, and have to leave extra time for that. Yeah, I always have to leave that extra time to get somewhere, or sometimes, if you have time to do a dry run, so I've seen it once, it's like, okay, I think I can remember where that is. But yeah, if there's last minute changes, that's really hard, about like, oh, we're just going to go over to the street in 15 minutes. It's like, wait, where are you going? Where are you going? I need to come with you because I don't know how to get there. Yeah, so you've been acting now for many, many years, and you've done like a lot of different things, including voice acting. So what's your favorite kind of acting that you like to do?
I love both voice acting and live action acting. They both have their advantages and disadvantages. I think I wouldn't want to only do one because I would miss the other. But if I, had to, then I would probably pick voice acting, just because it allows for more roles than people might see me for. Well, they do see me for, and limitations that I do have. I don't really see myself playing a super tough Marine on screen. Yet I've played many of them in audio dramas or in video games. Live action acting is obviously based a lot more on looks, and voice acting, but you've kind of got a bit more freedom to a bit more range of different roles. So in that way, I like it for that. But you also, at the same time, you cannot beat being in the same room as someone and having someone to act with, because voice acting is a lot more solo. It just requires a great deal of more imagination, of just imagining everyone else speaking and you responding. That I enjoy in itself. But yeah, that I would say, just because of the more diversity of roles that are open to me, is probably why voice acting kind of appeals to me a little bit more for that aspect.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Another thing I want to learn more about is the BBC training that you were in. So, as we said earlier, in 2017, you were chosen by the BBC for its Class Act training scheme. So, yeah, tell me about that and how you got chosen, what that was like, things like that.
Sure. Yeah, that was kind of a major that was a major boost for my career. So, in 2017, the BBC ran as I said, an initiative where they basically put out an open casting call for any disabled actor to audition, with the idea being the ones they would choose would go on to this scheme, this special training scheme for them. And I obviously jumped at the chance to audition, not really knowing where it would go, but ended up being one of the chosen 30, which meant a huge amount to me. And so once we were part of that, then that kind of started like I said, a training program that featured a whole host of things, like being trained by some of their top directors they had, sort of networking events, opportunities to have access to certain auditions. And so it was kind of a complete package, of the idea being they wanted to increase disabled representation on screen, because they felt like there was not enough of it. And they put it out, they told a lot of their production companies, because they don't produce everything in-house themselves, they said to a lot of the production companies that work for them, we want more disabled representation. they came back saying, well, we don't know where to find people, so we don't know how to do that, which incentivized them to make up this scheme to kind of make some of the what they classed best disabled actors more prominent and give them more opportunities. So, a mixture of workshops, training classes, events, apart from being amazing to be around so many other disabled actors, which, it was very much where you for the first time, you're kind of in a room where you don't feel completely like you're the odd one out. It's like everyone is on the same, everyone kind of has their own thing. It was just very enjoyable to as well to just meet other disabled actors and get their stories and see what they were struggling with. And as a result of that, ongoing on that, I was able to get an agent off that. Plus, it led to one of my favorite roles, which was on a BBC4 radio drama called Our Liam of Lords, where I played a autistic character called Noah. And it was good because, they obviously asked me to audition specifically because they knew of me through the BBC Class Act. So I got it through that. And it was good. I think they ideally wanted someone who was autistic to play it. And so thankfully it matched up. And that was probably one of my favorite roles to date. There was going to be a feature film version that we were going to do, which unfortunately got cancelled because of the pandemic. But, the radio play is still one that is very dear to me. It's a lovely story. And it just meant a lot to me because it was the first time I worked on a direct job for the BBC. And so, yeah, a lot of good came off the BBC Class Act.
Yeah, it sounds like a great opportunity to meet and work with a lot of other really, really talented disabled actors. Did you also get, as part of the program, like mentoring, or were you in classes? Like, what did it look like when you were in there?
Yeah, well, we got assigned kind of our mentors, which were all in-house BBC directors at the time, people who had done a lot of their shows. I had Rebecca Gatwood, who's kind of known for such things as, she was on EastEnders, which is a really big soap over here in the UK. She did a lot of work on EastEnders. More recently, I don't think she's actually with the BBC anymore, but I know more recently she directed Alex Rider, the TV series adaptation of the Anthony Horowitz books. I know she was directing a lot of episodes on that, so she was great. So we got some training from her and the mentoring. So there was all sorts of classes as well, including one that I managed to go on called Physical Movement in Theatre, which was obviously a very helpful one for someone like me. And it was just nice to go to a course where they completely understood that this kind of thing was going to be difficult, because to go to a normal kind of like dance movement class for someone like me, they'd probably, even if you kind of maybe explained it, they'd probably get frustrated with you if you weren't like, because you would have been around a lot of people who would have probably been far more advanced. And so it was just nice to do training like that. So yeah, a mixture of training, mentoring, events, auditions, and so it was huge benefit to me. So I'm very proud to have been part of it, and it was a big boost to my career.
That's awesome. Yeah, hopefully people will at least know where to find and source that talent, so that what you were told a few years ago as related to the BBC is like, okay, now you know where to find all of this great disabled neurodivergent acting talent, so let's go with getting everybody represented and working. That's awesome. Cool. Well, yeah, Ross, how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about your work, or maybe see or hear some of the shows that you've been a part of?
Best way is, well, I'm on Twitter at Ross K. Foad. I'm also on YouTube, which is, again, if you just search my name, you'll be able to find me. I have a lot of videos up there. Those are probably the best kind of places to kind of keep up and follow what I'm up to, really.
Okay, cool. I'll put links to those in the show notes so people can just go right there. As we close out, is there anything else that you'd like our listeners to know, or anything that they can do to help or support you?
Only if there is anyone who needs some voice acting and is interested and would be interested in checking out my animation show reel, is on my YouTube page, or it's also a pinned tweet on my on Twitter. So if you have any voice acting that you think I might fit, I would love to audition for you. If someone who hears this might want to kind of collab on something, so feel free to get in touch.
Okay, awesome. Great. Well, Ross, thanks again for being on my podcast. It was great talking with you, and I appreciate you sharing your story and your experiences.
Oh, thank you. It's an absolute pleasure.